Let me know when I should get really nervous, just so I know.
Well, you should get nervous now because we're on.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Morell and John Daversa, and I'm going to play a little something while I'm cutting and pasting. Here we go. Well, you should get nervous now. Somehow, I don't think that's continuing of you, is it? Aha, no, that is not you. That was gorgeous. We're playing little clips right now because we want to be sure that we don't get taken down. Let me see here. I'm hearing myself talk a little. Get out of there. And actually, let's play another little clip. God, what a tease, man. This is really a bad tease. Okay, here's a video teaser. Maybe I don't, that was the Loren piece, right?
Mhm.
Oh wait, that was the first one that I did. And then, oh my goodness, and the phone and the doorbell rings. Okay, here we go. And I'll be right back. This is really beautiful teasers, and I'm going to absolutely get this gorgeous sounding music. Ladies and gentlemen, um, here are these two really beautiful people and musicians, and John Daversa and Justin Morell, and they have this new project, which is why we're specifically. I've had John on before, and I guess I've just met you, Justin, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know each other before, but they have a beautiful project and wanted to speak about it. So I'm more than happy to have them on. Since this is kind of the focus, why don't you guys start by telling us about the project?
Well, first of all, thank you, Cathy, for providing the space and the platform to share with your followers. And I had such a great time the last time we got to chat. And I know this forum is really about connecting musician to musician, and I really value that and cherish that. So grateful, very grateful for all the work that you're doing, pulling us
John
all together.
Daversa, yeah. And you know what? Actually, now that you're speaking, I think that there should be a little more introductions of both of you guys before we get into the project. So I have had John Daversa on before, and John, I know John from Los Angeles, although now he's living in Florida. And
No, I live in Miami. I don't live in Florida.
oh. Uh-huh. Um, Okay.
No,
Um,
I don't mean anything, but I just mean it's such a different
it's like a
other
different,
culture. You know,
yeah,
it's such an other place than the rest of the state. It's very interesting in that
huh,
regard.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. I haven't spent much time in Miami, a little bit, but not much.
Come
But I
on.
know it's definitely got a lot of Cuban influence, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing melting pot of Cuban heritage and Latin American, you know, Colombian, Ecuador, Brazilian, uh, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentinian, you know, and really rich communities that are here. And everyone's together. And can you imagine the melting pot of music that comes out of here? I mean,
Yeah,
it's really special. And I'm
yeah.
just starting to really be able to feel that, you know, in a more experiential way.
Do you think it's already, well, how long have you been there?
It's been, I think I'm starting my 8th year.
Oh, God,
Mhm.
time goes by so fast. So would you say it's, of course, it's really influencing your playing and your writing?
Well, I mean, yes, but it's been the life that I've lived here so far has been very isolated actually because I've had this triangle of uh, you know, traveling so much. So I'm always at the airport and I'm at the university, which is its own little bubble of a culture itself, and home, you know, and I have you know, when we moved here, my daughter was 2.5. So, you know, because I have to travel so much, you know, I'm trying to be at home as much as possible. So it's been fairly isolated. Now I'm being able to go out and really hear a lot more music. But over the last few years, I've had a chance to play with some incredible musicians that are here. You know, my last record was all boleros with Gonzalo
Right,
Rubalcaba that's here, and
beautiful.
Antonio Figueroa and Daphne Sprieto, who just moved down here from New York, and I just did a record with an amazing steel pan musician
Oh,
uh, that's named Leon Foster Thomas, and I've known him all the time that I've been here. I mean, just an amazing musician that I don't think a lot of people know, and he just happens to play an instrument that a lot of other people don't play, but he
yeah.
plays it as virtuosically
Huh.
as any other instrument.
Oh,
So
that's great.
it's just such a huge wealth of musicians that are here.
Does it seem a little overwhelming sometimes what you're totally surrounded with and what you can put your toes into?
It's just exciting. It's inspiring. I don't know if inspiration can be overwhelming. I mean, it can, but it's just in that sense of real gratitude. You know, you just take whatever can go in at any given time. The vessel gets full at some point, and you know when it's time to be able to take in some more, you will.
Fantastic. Well, and Justin, we don't want to ignore you. So Justin lives in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and yes,
Yeah,
yes, Joey, Hershey is about the chocolate.
it definitely is about chocolate here. Yeah.
So, and you were saying you had lived in LA and then moved in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and grew up in LA and started my career there, and have known John ever since childhood. So, and then yeah, I spent some time in the Bay Area, and then some time in Eugene and Portland, Oregon, and then Atlanta for a year before I came to Hershey.
Curious who was your guitar player teachers here in LA?
Well, my dad is a guitar player. He was a busy studio and jazz player for many years, and
Yeah,
so I studied when I was a kid, like 9, 10 years old. I studied with a great guitar teacher in LA named Brent Block. I don't know if he's still teaching there or what.
yeah,
And he taught me some basic stuff. And then from there, I just sort of, went self-taught and asked my dad for advice from time to time.
and played.
And played, yeah, tried to just, play as much as I could. And
Yeah.
make a huge ton of mistakes and then try and figure out what was going wrong and fix them, that kind of stuff.
And what are you doing in Hershey?
I teach at a college here called Lebanon Valley College. I teach music composition and theory. That's what brought us here is the job. And so I've been here. I moved here same time John moved to Miami. So about
Oh,
8 years ago or so.
Has that been 8 years? Okay. I was going to
Yeah, I
ask you.
think so. Yeah, just about. A little
how
more
old was
maybe.
your son then?
My son would have been about 7 or 8 when we moved here. He's 16 now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of moving.
Yeah. Actually, let's just kind of have a fun moment here that John sent me. He sent me this, which is cute. Wow. 30 years ago.
Whoa.
By the way, that's on bass is Mike Elizondo,
Oh.
and on drums is Trevor Lawrence Jr. Clearly, since then, I've not gotten a haircut.
And I have.
Yeah, Kathy, Justin and I, we grew up together since age 0. Because
because
you
your
know,
dads
Justin's
worked together, right?
incredible musician and guitar player and composer, and he was playing in the studios where my dad was playing in the studios as well, and so they were friends, and their families were friends, and so when we came up, it was no choice. So we're truly brothers. I'm an only child. Justin's as close to an actual brother that I have, and so we learned how to play music together. And have shared so many projects together. So doing something like this last project has been so incredibly bonding and special.
Yeah. How did the project start?
Well, I can start this, and maybe Justin can follow up on
Sure.
the things that I get incorrect. Justin had actually written a guitar concerto that we recorded at Frost School of Music, and Adam Rogers played the guitar part, and we recorded it, and it's actually out. It's an incredible piece of music, and the Frost Concert Jazz Band played it really well, and proud of that project. And I think I had, Justin had me come up to Hershey to do a little master class at the college, and I remember when he picked me up at the airport, we were talking about some different projects and some different ideas, and I half jokingly said, "Hey, why don't you write me a trumpet concerto?" He said, "Yeah, sure." And but as I joke, I really anymore or at this particular moment, when I make music, when I'm going to make a record, I really want it to have intent and have meaning behind its purpose. And I feel like music is such a powerful vehicle to express those intentions. And it's like this bubble, and you can charge the bubble with whatever you want it to be, and it just goes and ripples around the planet forever, infinitely. So there's a certain responsibility to be conscious about what you're putting out in music and sound when you're going to disturb the silence. And Justin was already thinking about trying to write something that expressed some semblance of his experience raising his son. And I just thought, that's it. Let's do that.
And I'm sorry, let me interrupt because maybe not everybody has read
Mhm.
what I posted about the project. So John's son, Justin's son has autism, and so that's what that's what John is speaking about. He wanted to do something expressing your perspective, your experiences, your feelings, right?
Yeah, yeah. In particular, my son, he's 16 now, and I mean, we started kind of thinking about and conceiving this project too. I mean, I've been thinking about it for a few years, but John and I really started talking about this project a couple of years ago, and really, it's about my experience with a child with autism, but also an autistic child who's nonverbal. That's a big part of our family experience. Dealing with the difficulties of communication and things like that. And so, um, this project was really about, I mean, music is such a big part of our lives. It's a big part of my son's life, and it's a way to kind of connect all of these things together. That's really where it started. So,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Didn't mean to totally interrupt you, John, but I
No,
did
that was
want
the
to
perfect
clarify
way to
that.
pass
Yeah.
the baton. Mhm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was intrigued when I was reading that you were you it did I am I remembering correctly that you took his nonverbal communication and you started creating music out of it?
Right. Yeah. When I was trying to really think about how to approach writing this piece, one of the things that I wanted to do was to involve my son in the composition in some way.
Yeah.
He doesn't really sing, and he doesn't play any instruments or anything like that. So it's not like I could say, hey, like, why don't you come up with a melody or something? So I thought about, he does communicate using an iPad where he can touch pictures and it speaks for him. So if he wants something to eat, he can touch the food item and it says what it is. And I messed around with ways of kind of putting music in there so that he could choose things, and maybe he would kind of come up with a little musical phrase or something. But I thought, he does often make a lot of vocalizations when he's just hanging out and having fun. And I thought, well, maybe I could just record some of those and see what I discover. And so I think I just was there on a particularly, perfect moment when I caught some of his singing and went and like listened back to it shortly after and found these little bits of melody and really slowed them down quite a bit. But basically, he sang two phrases that became the sort of the A section and the bridge, so to speak, of the theme. And I went back and harmonized it. And yeah, so that's really what the whole piece is based on.
It's wonderful. Um,
Yeah, it really was a gift
yeah, it's
for me.
amazing. It's I've I have been noticing that a lot of people have been doing this kind of process with birds.
Hmm.
It's very, very uh, I don't want to say common, but it's very much in the process, especially with improvisers. Stephen Nachmanovich is one who he's the guy who wrote Free Play. Are you
Uh-huh.
familiar with that book? And so he's an improvisational violinist, and he's been working with birds for a long time. But it just strikes me as you say this, which is more and more in my reality anyway. It's about the process, you know. It's not only about the cut and dry result. It's really about the process, and that's I think I would like to believe that I as an artist am helping people towards accepting that life is a process and there's all these little processes involved, and
Hmm.
it makes the actual action less traumatic, you know because there's a lot of trauma that people experience in living. And I
For sure.
think part of that could be solved or soothed by understanding it's a process, you know. So I like it from that. I think I'm kind of drawn to that fact of what your experience is too.
Well, and one of the important parts about this project, both for both John and I, was really to think about, how can we call attention to humanity, the humanity of individuals. I mean, thinking, beyond the sort of the box in which we think about what autism is, and that's a huge box, and nobody fits into it essentially. I mean, nobody fits that profile. But really, just the idea that because somebody is different, or because they can't express themselves in a way that you might expect, or because they have various challenges, we still want to respect the fact that everybody has a kind of dignity, and they deserve to be noticed and acknowledged. And so that's really at the core of what this project is about.
That's very nice. um, I have downloaded the album. Maybe I can play some of the music, or
Right.
dare I try?
Right. If not, you will record something after and put it together from the post.
Let's see. I'm gonna just look around for this, and yeah, there's any particular cut, do you think, or shall I just try a little bit of something?
John, what do you think?
How about the second track?
Okay.
Searching but never finding.
Yeah. Oh man, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna just take that here. That is so beautiful. I can't wait to immerse myself in the whole thing.
Thank you. Ken.
One thing that that I'm let's see, how do I say this? Just one thing that is attractive to me, and also I just wonder about the process of composition relating to this, is the use of space. It's just, I personally, as a listener, when I listen to something, first of all, the very first note totally puts you in the space of the creation. So whether it be good or bad, and I always thought, well, just from the very first note, I know whether the music's going to be good, or whether the player's going to be good. This particular piece, and well, John, let's face it, you're writing. You were the arranger on this, or Justin?
Justin wrote everything, orchestrated, arranged.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not that familiar with your orchestration, Justin.
You will be.
Well, okay. So
This has been really interesting for me too, just at that point, because I do consider myself to be a composer and arranger, and it's the first record I've ever done where I haven't done the writing.
oh,
And
really?
and so Justin and I have talked about it before, the amount of trust that I have for Justin,
Yeah.
there's only one person I could see that happening with, and that's Justin. And and there was never any question what was going to come out. So I hope that everyone checks out the album just for Justin's writing. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it's got this heart underneath it.
Yeah. Well, that's gorgeous. And I was just going to say, and Justin, I see you're about to speak. Hold on. So what I was actually going to ask was, I understand when you get a group of musicians together, that's right, and you're the soloist, because that's what I experience, and then just by who you are and who the musicians are, you trust, and there's a balance of things, and it's magic. I understand that, but writing is, I guess, because you guys have written so much, and you are now, it's the same thing as a player, that you have trust in what the process is, what the results are, and how it sounds and how it works. Is that kind of on the correct way of thinking as a composer, going for the magic, the composer arranger?
I mean, that's such a complicated, big question for me. I mean, I think, anytime that I sit down to write something, I've just sort of recently gotten to the point where I kind of feel like, oh yeah, I think this is probably going to work out. Like I'm pretty sure
really?
it's going to work out. And yeah,
Wow.
well, I mean, most of the time, for most of my composing life, I've written things and I thought, wow, I hope I can make this work. And now I just sort of feel like I'm at the point where I feel like, yeah, I think it's going to turn out, in the end. But I sort of believe, I mean, just as, I'm a guitar player and an improviser, jazz musician, as well as a composer. And so, one of the things that I've learned to do in my composing is to not try to get too far ahead of myself in the process. And wherever I start out, allow myself time to kind of live with a basic idea and explore an idea and try to see what's possible before I start to get too much in depth in the actual composing the piece out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like if I can just let it sort of live in the back of my brain for a month or two, and just touch base on it, for a few minutes every day,
Mm-hmm.
then when I start to write the music, it tends to come together a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that get at your question at all, or am I not even on track there?
It's kind of a broad question. So yes, that is in the universe of my question. That's why I love talking about this kind of stuff, because it's never quite it's never quite finished, and it's in a magical space and universe that we're talking about anyway. It's not this material universe. We don't work in the material universe. So,
but a funny thing about that, I think, for me, is that I find comfort in making it feel more like a material universe, even though it really isn't.
like, in what way?
Well, what I mean is, I might have a little musical idea or a few notes or a little melody or a sort of a sound of some kind. And if I can kind of bring it down to earth and look at it for what it is in a very sort of literal way, these are the notes, these are the different ways in which these notes can be arranged. This is how they can be stretched out. This is how they can be voiced. And then approach it from that standpoint, then I feel like I have a chance, Whereas if I try to let myself get too caught up in the kind of the inspiration and the magic of it, then it gets too overwhelming for me. And I feel like that's too much pressure. If any magic is going to come out of this process, it's going to be through a kind of a slow kind of, just hard work of, okay, if I put a bunch of bricks over here and then put a couple 2x4s across the top, and, eventually this thing is going to stand up, that kind of, it makes me feel more, less intimidated by it.
Yeah. I wonder if that is the same mechanics for everybody, but everybody kind of looks at it a little differently because we're all individuals. But I wonder if the mechanics are, pretty much all the same. I guess so.
I don't know, John.
It's the B flat. And everything else is fair game, I think. You know, the way, you know, it's interesting the way you put it there, you know, to take the pressure off, Justin. The thing that has become more and more apparent to me is that it just has nothing to do with me. You know, when I write, it's really, you know, the first part of the process is just bringing it down to earth. You know, it's bringing it down into something where we can touch it and feel it and look at it. But that, you know, at the moment where you're just an open vessel and just waiting for that source material to come in, it's I'm just the vessel. I have nothing to do with it. And so if you can use your ego for good, and like instead of being all of your motivation, you know, like put it here somewhere and use it to get up in the morning, but keep it there, then it allows you to just, even if you don't like the idea, you know, I mean, who am I to say that it's not good? Like I write down everything and I use everything, you know, because I feel like there's a respect that I have for the reason that it came in. And you know, even when I judge it, you know, I always think, okay, who am I to judge it? That this isn't, you know, something that's, and it always works out. I use it for something that I never would have imagined. And it's that same thing with trust too, you know, working with other musicians. I love that part. You know, you know, then you go into the creative, you know, the writing place, and you know, and you do work with all the nuts and the bolts and the, you know, the things that are more tangible, and you get into the intellectual games, and it's always a balance between that and the intention, the heart, the purpose, you know, the reason for it to be, and you're putting all those things together, and then you finish the piece and you try and be as detailed and as perfectionist as possible, but then you have to let go. Then you have to say, okay, once you give it to the musicians, it has nothing to do with me anymore. It's theirs. And I may have direction for what I think will help the music on a higher plane, you know, so it's not their egos creating the music. It's really some higher collective consciousness doing it. But when you give it to them, you know, the way that they interpret it is automatically going to be different, even if it's close to what you imagined. And that's the part I love. I mean, sometimes people will play stuff and it's never the way that I would have even imagined it, but it's perfect. I may not even like it, but it's perfect, you know? and it turns out that was exactly what it needed. And then, you know, that's always the discernment too. Sometimes, okay, that interpretation doesn't serve the music. Okay, so we need to, you know, play a little bit more inside the box. But you know, if I take myself out of the picture, really great things can come through. That's how I think about it.
Do you guys experience nerves when the piece is being played, like in public?
Right before this podcast, this video.
It's okay, John. You don't have to be nervous with me. But yeah, I was just curious, like that moment when, you know, you're about to perform it, no matter how much, well, maybe if you've rehearsed it a million times, but do you feel like, oh, is it going to sound good this time? Is the audience going to respond well? Should I be doing this piece first, or, you know, that kind of thing?
Interesting. You know, it's funny because, I mean, for me, it's been a more rare occurrence to have a piece that I've composed performed in which I'm not performing with the group.
Yeah.
I mean, for most of my career, the stuff that I've written, I have also played. And you would think you would be more nervous when you're playing the music with the people because you're on the spot. But I actually find that I'm more anxious when I'm not playing. And it's not because I don't trust the musicians to play it. It's just that I'm not distracted by having a guitar in my hands, you know. I mean, I used to love, and I still do, but I don't do it very often these days, but the experience of, you know, playing a piece for the first time, something that I've written, and being a part of a group. and the way that you kind of get lost in that process because you're just trying to, communicate with the musicians and make the music happen. But to sit in an audience and have a piece performed that you've written and just be a passive performer is a very, I don't know if it's a nerve thing so much. It's just like a weird experience where I still feel like, well, what am I doing? Like I should be doing something, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here, so it's definitely a newer thing for me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I have a question from Roland. Justin, do you ever hear harmonies in your head as you go through the compositional process?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't have the brain power, I guess, to hear, multi-part things fully realized in my head. I tend to hear, I will, like a lot of times if I'm working on something, I have to force myself to step away from the piano and go outside or take a break or something. And then I let the ideas continually play in my head. And a lot of times the harmonic kind of framework or some of the details will start to reveal themselves in a way where I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of hear where that's going now. But a lot of that stuff I fairly carefully work out at the piano. I know essentially what I'm going for, but the finer details, I really have to hear them and experiment and play through them in slow motion and stuff. It's a slow, I would definitely say for me, it's a slow process, and I don't have perfect pitch or anything like that. So, I know it's a note.
Da,
Oh, I was only off by a fifth.
Is it a B flat or a C?
As Muhammad Ali said, if you want to see sharp, don't be flat.
Yeah.
But I was getting back to something, when we were talking earlier, and John was talking about our collaboration, and when we first started playing music together, when we were like 16 years old or something, a lot of stuff that we did involved, I mean, I really enjoyed working with electronics and things like that. At that time, I had keyboards and sequencers and stuff, and so a lot of times I would compose a little something and sequence it out, and have drum machines playing all that stuff, and then John would play, I'd write the melodies out and John would play the melodies and then improvise all the solos over everything, so we have a kind of a long history of, that I would write things and John would, they would feature John as a performer. And so, it was always just an amazing experience and I have recordings of these things. And I mean, John sounds brilliant. I mean, it's just genius, just the you just put anything in front of him and it was like magic would come to life. And so I think there's this, we've had this connection for forever, really. I mean, ever since we started playing music together, where like anything that I write, I just give it to John. I don't say anything. And I just know that it's going to sound good. And it's that trust that he was talking about, where I like all of the composing process or whatever that I have that I'm working on, I'm asking myself all these questions and, worrying about whether or not I'm making the right decision here or there. And then once the thing is done and I hand it to John, it's like, well, I know this is going to be good now because he's going to play it, So it's that way, and that kind of communication, I think it really does feel like magic.
Yeah. John doesn't have anything to say to that.
About magic? I got lots of stuff to say about magic. We can start with unicorns. I forget your other, your question that you asked, Justin. I had 1,000 things going through my head, but now I can't remember what the subject was.
Was it the nervousness or something before that?
No, I remember, you're talking about, being nervous either about just sitting in the audience listening to one of your compositions. And, I've experienced that a couple times too. And I guess it goes, for my experience with it was, I just felt like I was an audience member like anybody else, because I have that feeling of it's not mine anymore.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really nervous about any part of it. It was just, sometimes I have that feeling where, and it's happened too, where like it's happened a couple times where something has been playing on the radio when I'm driving somewhere and you know, I'm listening to the jazz station and they're playing one of my things, you know, and I'll go, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I got to remember what that is, you know, and then, oh no, God. And it's like the most embarrassing thing,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's really like, it's not mine anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
You know, we had a good time when we were together, and now the baby is birthed.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's just out there.
You know,
Uh,
I used to, I had this one project that I did, a recording project. It was uh, a year or so after my first marriage was over, and I got together friends, trio, Karen Hammock and Kendall Kay and Chris Seimer. And I had written a body of music, you know, just, you know how it comes. It comes like in this body or series, and then, like you said, it's done. And I had the strangest experience with that because we would get together at my house and we'd play the songs, and it was really good. And then when they left, it was like it was totally out of my mind, out of my universe. I didn't remember really the feeling. Like many times, you know, when I play something, it'll stay with me, right? Most of the time. That was the oddest experience. I was so intrigued by that. Like I didn't even know what that meant, but it kind of touches on what you said. I think that's what it is. It's just like you, for whatever reason, you're in it, you develop it, and then it's gone. I guess you've completed what the expression that you needed to complete.
yeah, the expression. I mean, I certainly, in the same breath, I'll tell you, I've never finished a piece. Never.
What does
I've
that
never
mean?
finished a piece.
What does that mean?
It's never actually finished. There just comes to be a moment where it's just, you're not in that moment anymore. So
Mm,
you move on, and that's the moment that it's in. I mean, the only thing that's, you know, especially as improvisers, you know, the only thing that's real is right now.
mhm.
You know, the past, I thank it with all my heart for the experiences it's given me thus far, but it's not real anymore. It's gone. And the future, I'm excited for what's to come, but I'm not attached to, or I mean, try real hard not to be attached to any kind of outcome. You know, the future does not exist yet. You know, so we live in this, whatever your capacity is for the moment. You know, this now, it could mean, you know, some blur of 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after. I'm sure some people could be able to live in like an hour on both sides, and maybe it expands. I don't know, but that's the only thing that's real. You know, this time and space warp. Uh, so with music, you know, it exists in time. You know, so a performance or a recording, or, you know, being on the other side of the performance, uh, the only thing that exists is the moment. So, you know, you just be a vessel and let it come through. You know,
Yeah.
and don't detach from experiencing the experience. You know, be in it, embody it, but
Yeah.
you know, be
It's a
all
vessel.
sides of it.
Yeah. By the way, Rosanna Vitro is here, and
Oh
Kate
wow!
Reed is here, and
Hello, singers.
um,
Album has no words. Sorry. You know, and Justin should talk about. There's a choir on it, of course.
oh, cool.
That Kate Reed sings in,
Oh,
but there are no words.
okay. Maybe we'll have to hear a
Right.
little of that one.
It's throughout the whole piece.
Oh, now you're calling it a piece, but the album, or do you think of the album as a piece, or are you talking about, yes, you do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, it's really a theme and 11 variations. So I think of
Okay.
it
Oh, I
as
see.
like one large scale 12 movement piece.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, John is much better at being in the moment than I am. You know, he's uh, I mean, I think that's the mark of a great improviser, is to know how to be in the moment at all times. I
Yeah.
think you can't be that great at that job if you are not able to allow yourself to be open to the moment continually. And that's much more difficult for me, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I've always gravitated towards composition, is because I don't think of that process. I mean, that process is not really being in the moment. Ultimately, you want the experience of the result to be in the moment. But the idea of being able to take the moment of music and slow it down and just stare at that one measure of it for as long as you need to stare at it, until you move every piece around until it's how you want it to be, is a fascinating part of the music creation process, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think of like the great French composer Dutilleux, who, you know, would like spend 15 years continually revising one piece. I mean, I don't know how anybody has the stamina or the attention to detail to be able to do that. Of course, his music sounds like that too. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, from start to finish. But just the idea that you could be so in tune with every moment of what everything is going to sound like together with everything else is just the sort of the ultimate, I don't know if goal is the right word, but just kind of the ultimate, results that you want to get to, right? Everything just working perfectly so that when you hear it, it feels like it's all happening in the moment, just magically. But for me, it doesn't happen that way.
I remember Maria Schneider was given a master class over here a few years ago, and somebody asked her, when do you know a piece is finished? And she thought about it for a second. She said, it's basically when I wake up in the morning and I'm not bugged by it anymore. I don't think she used those words, but I mean, that was basically the gist. She's just not thinking about it anymore. So the moment has passed,
That's cool.
Or, it's tied up as much as she's comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I think I feel similarly to that, because when you're writing, you like every moment you're trying to work out those puzzles, those things that aren't working. May it be big gestures like, this section, the form just doesn't work, or is that supposed to be in there or not? And then you kind of wake up with the answer and you go, okay, there it is. And then one morning it's just, okay, it's done. What I was thinking of before that one of the thoughts that you're asking, who do you write for? Do you think about the audience? Do you think about who it's going to go to? And
yeah.
It's funny, I don't really have any, I just had the thought, because for whatever reason, this last month, I've been watching these old Dean Martin videos, interviews.
Oh,
Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and listening to some music that, is, I was listening to the neo soul group, Harris Coyote and Peck and these funk groups that are, and listening to the interviews, they're very concerned about how they develop their music, create their music based on the audience reaction. Mm-hmm. And that's such the antithesis of the way that I'm used to thinking about creating music, because, and I think a lot of folks that I know create music where it's, you have the sound and you just make the music that has the most integrity in your own little world. And, and that there'll be like-hearted, like-minded people that attract to the same frequency. And that I think is true, but to make adjustments and make edit points according to what worked that particular night to the audience is such a foreign concept, and one that I need to look at, one that I really need to, because it's you can do that with a lot of integrity too.
I just don't know how long that would take, because how I mean, unless it's in the moment, or how do you
well, it's like comedians go out, right? They have their set of jokes, right?
Yeah.
And they see which ones land.
Yeah.
And then the ones that don't, they take them out and they just keep retooling. And of course, the audience is different every time, and they might be in a place in Munich where the jokes don't quite work the way that they did in St. Louis,
Yeah.
and you make those adjustments, but you're still really paying attention to the reaction, and I think that's the key is just not staying, just taking it as feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting that they feel that. Maybe I don't agree, but that's interesting to look at. This group of people looks at it this way, feels it that way. It's really important feedback to be aware of, and then you
Right.
you take that information however you want to. But it's not something that I've grown up developed thinking of as much as I should, and that's why
That's very humble of you, man. I wouldn't be quite as humble as that. I wouldn't lead in that way, but it's very ingracious. I mean, it's very gracious of you to allow that to be a reality that you could work with, and that would
I think
be
it's
good.
fun. I mean, it's when we talk about humanity, right, which is a lot of what this album is celebrating. It's us all looking at each other and saying, okay, you're having your own unique human experience here, and I don't know anything about it, and it's awesome, and I forgot my train of thought here. It's the humanity of it. So seeing where everybody's at is really fun to try and connect. That's what I was thinking of. It's all about connection, us all connecting together, because we're having these individuated lives. We're here's Justin, here's Cathy, here's me, but we're actually all part of the same hand.
Yeah.
So the more understanding, the more compassion we have for each other, that feels really good. That feels of substance to me.
Yes.
But I imagine that in the days when bands used to, when whatever, Miles would take a band on the road for a year or something like that. They were playing all the time, every night, right? I mean, they consciously or subconsciously, they have to be adjusting what they're doing to what audiences are doing. And that's something that we, at least in the kind of musics that we tend to play, that just isn't a thing that happens so much anymore. And it's such a different thing from the experience of composing a large scale piece of music where you can't, I mean, it's not realistic to, you're always sort of trying to anticipate. I mean, I think as composers, we should be anticipating, what is an audience going to think about this? How are they going to hear this? Because if they don't understand any of it, then you might as well not write it. I mean, we had almost the better part of a half century of music in the 20th century that was written without any opportunity for an audience to be able to connect to it, and that didn't work out so well. So I think we always have to be thinking about, are people going to understand this? How many times are they going to have to hear it before they understand it? Are they going to hear, Cathy, like you were saying, you hear the first note and you're either on board or you aren't, right?
Yeah.
How many notes do they have to hear of this movement before they're going to be on board or they're going to check out? Because you only get so much time, right? And they either better be, happy to hear what's coming next, or you've lost them already, so.
This reminds me of, I was in New York a few years ago, 2 years ago or something. And I had a day, where I was wandering around, and I went to I guess it was a performance of, I can't think of, there's the famous New York music school there. What is it?
New School Juilliard.
Juilliard, I think.
Juilliard? Okay.
Yeah, and so there was some unusual orchestra there.
Okay.
And one was this long line of wind players and string players. And they played a piece that was basically one chord, 45 minutes, but it shifted as far as which voices were playing.
Mm-hmm.
And and the audience there were a lot of older people who obviously had been coming there, for years, because it was a free Juilliard concert, and they would check it out all the time. But it was really interesting. And there was an older woman in front of us who was very, boisterous about that she thought it was real crapola, and but the audience, they did not get up and go away. For 45 minutes listening to one chord, basically. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of musical experience that went on during the, what do you want to call it, the modernist period of music, I think, that were very interesting, and they're conceptually very interesting, and it's important that those things happened at some point. But I think also it's worth recognizing that they made a point. We understand what that point was, and now maybe we don't necessarily have to hear it very much anymore. I mean, I love very dissonant music. Like Alban Berg is one of my favorite composers ever, and much of his music is extraordinarily dissonant. But yeah. But I also don't want to hear, I mean, it's cool that somebody wrote a piece where there's 100 metronomes all wound up and slowing down, but once you know that thing exists, you don't really ever have to hear that again. It's like, oh, that was a cool idea. Now I can put that in my list of ideas that I've heard, and you can kind of move on from it.
Yeah.
I mean, and music, I mean, music is a cultural phenomenon, right? It's not, there's no such thing as the universal language of music. There are multiple musical languages.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to, you have to communicate to an audience with a language within music that people can understand. It has cultural significance. It has references. It has, there are scale patterns, melodic patterns that people understand. And if you take all those things away, then the emotional content is gone. People have nothing to grab onto.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work.
I was actually, I was thinking it might be nice to hear a little bit of you guys individually too, just to kind of round it out. By the way, John Taylor Hatch is here and he says hello.
Hello.
So
yeah, let's hear some John. Oh,
well, actually, I was going to go to Justin first
oh.
because we had looked at something that where did we look? Here we go. This one?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's gorgeous. Oh, you got a new fan in me.
Thank you.
That's really beautiful. Oh. Yeah.
That's from a project that I hope to have released later on this year, maybe early next year,
Oh, really?
of 21 new works with just guitars, except for that the album actually has Mark Ferber playing drums on most of them. So
Oh, perfect.
yeah,
Mark Ferber's the perfect drummer for you there. Wow.
he is
Yeah,
perfect for that stuff. Yeah, perfect for just about everything.
I know. He is a perfect drummer, man. Oof.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of a jerk, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. He and his brother, man, they're so,
Super mean guys.
downers. Yeah, man.
You see those two play basketball together. Oh my God. They got it.
Yeah, I interviewed them both together, and it was fun. And I mean, they really grew up playing together. It's probably like you guys. I mean, yeah, it's like,
Yeah, we went to college together.
huh?
John and I and Mark and Alan.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Did you guys play together?
Oh
Basketball?
yeah. No, not
Wow.
basketball. Music,
Wow.
not basketball.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Taylor loves the guitar collection, and he said, between both of you, do you remember, Taylor, this is so you, do you remember a performance you did that you were super nervous for? We actually touched on nerves already, Taylor. You came in late. How did you find a way to combat the feeling of something going wrong when you felt the need to let go?
Just
John?
the one where we played a duet. and
The
on
power went
tour,
out.
the power went
Yeah. That was a 1.5-minute long performance.
I know that's a serious question, but
But you have to laugh at some of that stuff.
yeah, I mean, we were in high school. I don't know what we did. I think we just I don't remember what we did. Or also where you wrote a big band chart, Justin, and she had just gotten the EVI, and the thing was mistransposed.
That's right.
Oh,
So I played your premiere in some other key that
oh.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm sure I loved it, but I'm not
For
sure.
sure it was better than the original.
So sorry to answer the question though. It's more just addressing nerves, right? Is that-
Yeah, basically it is. How did you find a way to combat the feeling of something going wrong when you felt the need to let go? It's a good question.
You know, my I'll let Justin answer that too. I remember when we were still living in Oklahoma, so I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and I was practicing for this, solo trumpet thing. Who knows what it was? Something out of the Rubanks book. I practiced over and over and over and over. I really wanted to be good and get a superior rating to get a 1. So I went in, and my dad dropped me off at the school in our 1972 green Cadillac Coupe de Ville. And I'm sure we didn't talk all the way through, on the ride, because I didn't talk. And as we got out, I'm sure he sensed what was going on with me. And he said, John, you've done everything you can do. You've practiced. Now just go play. And so there's a certain, I've remembered that for a long time, because what that is, you have to prep as much as you can. Prep. Do the practice, do the repetitions, practice those small little minute things, to be, I know I've been joking about the B flat, but to be able to play that B flat the same way every time, practice every time. So whenever I hear it in the moment, I can play it. I'm in control of it. So when you go and perform, then you just let go, and you've practiced the motions, and whatever's going to be is going to be. And there's a certain amount of becoming in tune with allowing the moment to be what the moment is, if you've done the work to get there.
Good answer.
That's it for me.
Yeah. Good answer. I can see Justin's thinking.
Yeah, I am thinking actually, I mean, I don't do a ton of performing these days. So if I did have to perform something big in front of a lot of people, I think I would feel a little bit nervous to get on stage. Although, I mean, when I was a lot younger, I used to get very nervous before I would play. I mean, when we were playing in high school and, in my early days in college and stuff, I got very nervous when I had to play. And mostly I was just terrified because my dad was usually in the audience. And I knew that, I mean, I knew what he sounded like when he was my age, and he was amazing. So I always knew that, I had a lot of work left to do. And so that was always the most terrifying thing to me. It was less about the whole rest of the audience. But at a certain point, I had to kind of do breathing exercises and sort of like, positive thinking, kind of remind myself that, that I've played the stuff before. It's, it's not like I didn't know how to play it. I just had to remind myself that, nobody in that room was going to play what I had to play better than I was going to play it at that moment if I could just get out there and just allow myself to be there. And that helped a lot. But I will tell you that when I was in my late 20s, I think, I got a call to play on a John Williams film, to play a little classical guitar stuff. And it was Catch Me If You Can, which is a great movie and an incredible score. And the guitar parts were pretty easy. And one of the reason I was called is because it happened to be a particularly busy day, and there just weren't a lot of people that were, in town that could do that kind of stuff. And it was a great opportunity. And, Mike Lang was there. I recently watched your interview with Mike Lang. So I was thinking about Mike, and just like everybody, Alan Estes was playing and Dan Higgins was playing, and like every amazing musician in LA was there. And I was terrified, like the entire 3-4 days, whatever it was, completely terrified, even though everything I had to play was pretty simple. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I know why I never wanted to become a studio musician, because I don't have the nerves to do this. I could never do what those people do. And so I think a lot of it is, you have to find the thing that you're comfortable doing and then go with that, and not be in that kind of situation where you just feel like, wow, this is not for me.
Yeah. For me, it's about focus. Because, and I remember coming up, what I did was I recognized what made me calm and be in the music, be in the magic. And for singers especially, because we're always somewhat encouraged to be out in front of the band, like way out in front of the band, and it's all about you. And I never was into that, probably because I grew up with a musician for a father. But what I started noticing, I mean, in that particular instance, I started noticing if I got up on stage and looked at the band, each person, and said hi, and made a connection, and then I performed, and I was always much better at that point, than if I hadn't. And so I realized that there are policies that you can make if you observe yourself in a situation that works. You can say, why did that work? Okay, in this case, it was because I said hello to the musicians first. So I made that a policy. I mean, I always did that. And I've taught singers like that for years. Like, I think connecting with the musicians is like, the first thing is getting your shit together. The second thing is now you're with the musicians. The third thing is the audience can experience that too. But a lot of times singers especially will go to the audience side first, they're entertaining, but yeah, so I think when you find something that works for you, basically is what I'm saying, then you do it. You do it all the time. It's something that works, and you do it and again, and then you build on that,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
The other part of it too is, we're in a culture right now, the Instagram
Yeah.
culture where everybody sees what everybody's doing, everybody's putting their best positive light out there in pictures, and
Yeah. Yeah.
creating these masks.
Yeah.
And so for the current generation and younger, there's a lot of comparison going on, right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing what that other person's doing. I'm not doing anything what that person's doing, and of course not, because they're not that person.
Yeah.
But there's that to contend with in comparison, and then putting any kind of value in what anybody else thinks of you is common to do, and I understand why that happens. But again, it just has to be, if you can have confidence in, you are this divine being here in all of your magnificence, and you have gifts and challenges like everybody else, and nobody has your gifts or your challenges. So how would they even know how to judge you? If they judge you, a lot of times it's because you're judging them. It's you perceive that judgment both ways. So the moment you can just release all judgment of yourself and of the other, a lot of that nervousness will go away. It's but if you feel a crowd loves you, a crowd hates you, take it as feedback. It's like, really, like, oh, that's interesting. There's a reason why everybody hated the performance tonight. Let's look at that. Okay, so these are the reasons. Interesting. Has nothing to do with me personally, because I know who I am personally. Nobody else knows who I am. Nobody else. Nobody. The people closest to me, Justin doesn't even know me that way. It's only your relationship with yourself can give you that kind of confidence, because it's real. And in the same way, if everybody loved you, interesting. I wonder why. Yeah. Then there's no attachment.
Yeah.
There's no giving false value to what somebody else thinks of you. It's just, if I have a gift or a challenge to share in this world, I freely offer it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And take it for whatever you can use it for. And I'll take your gift and challenge for whatever I can learn from it. It's a lot easier to say than to experience and embody. It takes a lot of work. But I think that's the root of a lot of this.
Yeah. By the way, you have a friend, a longtime friend. I'm sure you're friends with him, Stephen Patterson.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, Stephen.
And one question about that project we heard, Justin, with the guitars. That's not a project yet for sale, right?
It's not out yet, no.
Okay. So
I'm working on it.
Roland is ready. He has his money in his hand,
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll take the money now. So thank you.
Hey, John, let's listen to a little something from you. And the B flat. I like it.
Everybody's gonna have perfect pitch by the end of this.
Let's see. I'll show you some stuff, and then you can tell me just something. Should I go here? Should I just look around here?
Look, there's Kate Reed. You can go to the channel, maybe. I don't know what's there.
Okay. Should I listen to that or something else? Okay, cool. Sorry. Oh my goodness. I stopped somewhere. Sorry about that. To not listen to the whole thing. This looking at this reminded me of so much music that I've heard you play in LA. I've admired you for so long. The small band was one of my favorite. I think I booked it once or twice.
Yeah.
That was just wonderful. And what was the trio? The West, something West?
The Westland Trio.
Oh.
Music and Todd Milstein.
Those songs have always stayed with me. I mean, when I hear them, I'm like, oh yeah, I know every line of that.
Yeah. That was more than 10 years ago. And the small band in LA, we're due to play. It's been so difficult being away from my small band family in LA with Gene Coy and Jerry Watts and Tommy King, Brandon Coleman, Zane Carney, Cathy Buckingham, Robbie Marshall. That's the fam there. You all right?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It's just my cough that I have for 20 years.
I got some water for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, there's been so much great music. And also, I have to say that you're the person who I first saw give away CDs on the gig.
Yeah, that was...
It was so nice. It was presented so lovely.
Wow.
We want you to have the music to take home. Please take a CD. And I think you even walked around and gave people the CDs. And then you said, if you want to put some money in the tip jar, you can. And I still do that, actually, especially now because, CDs. But that was a long time ago when you started doing that. And I followed suit. It was really a good idea.
Yeah. Even, Justin and I have been selling CDs with this project. It's interesting, with the the record that you just played, Cuarentena, with Family at Home, I didn't print CDs for that project, and I got a lot of requests actually for I was surprised, and then for this one we made CDs, and surprisingly, I think there's still that want to hold something, and
Yeah.
I'm you know I still have that feeling too. I would love to.
Me too. I
feel this
my
artwork.
husband has a big record collection, you know. So actually, a friend of mine, Roland, who's on here, Roland Ascaroons, we went over to his house and we got a bunch of his records, and and I've been really enjoying. Oh, and I got a Miles one that was incredible, and it was really heavy vinyl. I have to ask my husband about that. So,
Check this out.
oh,
Signed by Gene Coy, Joe Bag.
wow.
What else have I got here?
Holy moly. Now, can you guys talk for a minute?
About Ornette Coleman.
Yeah, talk for 1 minute. I have to do something that is a necessity. I'm sorry, but it will only take a moment, and I'll be back.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, my co-hosts.
What do you really feel about this record, Justin?
Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time, actually.
Oh, you got to.
It's a classic. It's a classic.
Why is it a classic?
Why is it a classic? I think it's mostly the banjo playing. I think it was one of the first records that featured banjo, Brazilian banjo style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I come back to that record all the time.
Do you?
Just, oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I went through a Stan Getz phase actually. No, just his, he just sings.
Yeah.
He just sings. You know, when I was younger, sometimes the vibrato, you know, seemed like an older style, and I could only take small doses. But then I really understood the essence underneath it. You know, he's just a singer. Every note was real.
Yeah.
Here's another one. That's another.
I don't really know that record very well.
Oh man.
I know I should, but I don't.
Okay. Tonight, this is one I know you know really well because I listened to it in your car about 15,000 times.
Oh yeah. Yeah. One of my students was just transcribing Steve Gadd's solo on Asia the other day.
What's your favorite track?
I probably Black Cow.
Yeah.
I think I probably have to go with Black Cow.
Okay. Sorry, Cathy, I've taken over your show. It's one of my favorite records ever.
Nice.
Ever.
Nice.
Yeah. I know that one.
Yeah. And then, of course, come on.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
total classic. Yeah.
My dad played on this one.
Oh.
Wait, which one is that?
That's the D. Barton record.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Huh.
Stan Kenton Orchestra plays the jazz compositions of D. Barton.
Cool.
Peter Erskine posted something about that not too long ago.
That's right.
As part of his Infinity Drummers project thing that he was doing.
And
He
here's
did a
our
thing about
CD.
D. Barton. Yeah, look at that.
Nice looking cover.
It's 73 minutes, though. We have to do a double record.
Yeah.
Where do people
that-
buy?
About the cover.
Yeah, that
Artwork.
Wait,
the
first of all, where do people buy this?
The best place for the physical CDs is my website, which is
Okay.
and I'll sign it. And if you want Justin to sign it too, we can we've been doing that too.
And
I'll
you
live it out
tell
so
about the cover.
Yeah, one of the things that we did with this project is we connected with an organization called the Art of Autism. They're based out of Southern California, and they work with a whole bunch of fantastic autistic artists.
Uh-huh.
And several of those artists have created original visual art in kind of in response to or to go along with the movements from the record.
Yeah.
And one of the artists is her name is Angela Weddle. She lives in she's in Texas, and she created this image and sent it to us. This was several months back, and John and I both looked at it, and you know, my wife and I looked at it, and we just said, wow, like she captured the spirit of the record, and she captured really something about my son Loren, and we just loved it. And so we asked her if we could use it for the cover, and that's the cover image.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really beautiful. Yeah.
She is a
Really
fantastic artist. Yeah.
And Justin created a website for the project. It's allwithoutwords.org. And you
Okay.
can see many of the visual art pieces on the website and the artists, and find out a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
Oh, .org.
.org. Yeah.
.org. If you go to the art tab,
Wow.
oh, there's Angela. You can see Angela there.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow, that is really beautiful.
Angela's actually, she's creating some new images for this that piece that you played earlier with the guitars. She's creating some new images for that project as well, and we're making some animated videos to go along with some of the
Oh,
new
really?
from that. And her work is I'm just a huge fan of what she does.
Wow. Huh. Huh. Really beautiful stuff. Oh, look at that. Wow. Beautiful.
So these are all inspired by
Wow.
the music, the album.
Oh my God. Look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
Click on Ryan's thing.
He's actually creating a separate work for every movement of the piece.
I love this one with the trumpet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. He's really amazing.
Oh, God, the colors are gorgeous.
Mhm.
Wow.
He actually asked me for a copy of the score, and the musical little incipits that are in these pieces are actually note accurate for the piece, which I thought was really nice too. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Really, really beautiful. Wow. This is so cool. What a nice site, man. I did go here before, but I didn't totally peruse the whole entire thing.
Yeah, you can see some pictures of, the musicians and the orchestra, and recording this during a pandemic was challenging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and kind of insane.
There's Kate down there.
Yeah, there she is. Kate Reed.
And you can see the personnel.
Yeah. Wow.
Great local musicians that played on this record. And in the rhythm section, it's David Shiverton on drums, and great piano player Tal Cohen and Dion Kerr on bass. They really got the, it's that's always the one of the challenges when you have so much written music. It's so structured to create enough space where it has room to breathe, and where we can really improvise and interact and make it feel like the heart's really there, and they were able to bridge that to create the bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were amazing.
that brings up a question for me that, a lot of these questions, I've been around music all my life, but I just haven't really talked to these people about this stuff, and I haven't done the study myself. But so I'm curious, regarding what you just said. There's I don't know if I know what I want to ask, but something about, especially for large groups, well, for large groups, really, when you create, I've heard over the years so many things where it's created. I don't think you do this, John, and I don't know, Justin, if you do this or not, but there's like the head, let's say, even regarding a big band or an orchestra, there'll be the head, then there'll be this wide open spot where people can solo, and then the head out. I don't think you do that, John, right? When you
No, I got bored just you saying that.
me
Format.
too. That bores me. I'd rather hear something involved and soloing in and out of the involvement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that
yes,
I love the idea of taking tried and true formal structures
yeah,
and finding, one or two little places that are, where I'm leading you to the path that you think you know where we're going, and then, I mean, it can be as explosive as that, or something very subtle where it's just a little bit abbreviated, or extended, or whatever it may be.
yeah,
But it's that's the fun of arranging, is
yeah,
finding those little places, especially when you're working with music that's, the composition already exists, and then you're going to find a new way to present it. Like, I mean, when I did that Beatles project, that was the fun, right? Is to and these were songs that are, gospel,
yeah,
to a lot of people, and so you have to stay reverent to what the pieces are, but then find fresh ways to say it in the arrangement. And that has to do with formal structures, like you're talking about, or even like on my American Dreamers project, I did America the Beautiful and Stars and Stripes Forever. I mean, how much more reverent, these songs really mean, something and different things to everybody.
yeah,
So you have to keep the song what it is, what it's about, but then, find these new tributaries, because the continents keep shifting around, and you can't do it how it used to be. It's got to be how you're hearing it now.
yeah.
Right.
Taylor actually asked a question in arranging. You've answered this kind of, but this is just posed in a different way. He said, when you're writing a piece for a large ensemble, how do you prevent yourself from too much self-criticism when you're wanting a piece to sound good?
Oh boy.
Your turn.
That's an interesting, I guess I don't think too much about self-criticism relative to the actual piece that I'm working on. I mean, I usually think either it's working or it isn't. And I might be critical of myself if I can't figure out how to make it work, but I tend not to be too critical of the piece, because I feel like, okay, I've got an idea.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
think if I'm a good composer, I should be able to turn that idea into a piece. Okay, so that's square one. And if I've made a decision that this idea is going to become a piece, okay, well, I'm committed to this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then now my job is just to flesh this out, and to explore all the different places that this can go, and to pick one. And I trust my gut that either, if I think it's sounding good, if it's feeling good, then I know it's working. And at least as much as I will know anything, I know that it's working. Somebody else might not think that, of course. But but if it's not working, I just like, well, this is not sounding good. So I'm just going to keep trying different things, or I'm going to stand back and say, try and figure out, okay, well, what is it that's not making sense here? How can I approach this with fresh ears, or let me step away from it and come back to it. And then hopefully, if I get to the end of the piece and it's like, well, this sounds good, then I figure, well, great, then it's working. That's about the best I can do for now, and then try to move on from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, John was talking earlier about, comparing. Yeah, I mean, I think, how easy it is to compare with other people in your field and stuff like that. And I know, like, if I try to compare what I do to Maria Schneider or Vince Mendoza or Bartok or Samuel Barber or Joni Mitchell, or I mean, like, you name it, it's sort of like, well, I'm done. Like, I can't. Or like one of my favorite composers ever is Russ Ferrante from the Yellow Jackets, and I just think this is just pointless. Like, I will never ever write anything that I enjoy listening to as much as I enjoy their music. But that's not my place to try to. I mean, that's just a ridiculous place to be. All I can do is like, well, this is the piece, and I'm writing this piece, and if it works, then great. Then I'm happy. At least for a little while.
I've thought like that too. Even in my simple, I mean, I'm writing songs. I'm not writing stuff like you guys are writing. But
writing songs is just as hard as anything. It's just as complex. I mean, for me, it's just as complex and just as hard as writing anything, I think.
Yeah.
Of course.
Roland bought it digitally, and now he's going to buy this hard copy CD.
Awesome.
He also wants to thank you, John, for helping him to remember the name of Gonzalo Rubalcaba, because for years he couldn't remember his name. And here comes Cuarentena.
Gonzalo Rubalcaba, one of the greatest musicians on the planet, and one of the most elegant gentlemen I've ever met.
Yes.
And he plays that way too.
Yeah, that's the bomb.
Writing, I was just thinking, writing for me, it's such a personal experience, right? It's such a, you just create your own little world.
Yeah.
It's like this own little, your own little fantasy world.
Yeah.
When you're there, and it's working when I get so excited when I'm in that place. It's like, there's just, sometimes it's arduous. Yes. Sometimes you're trying to work out the puzzles pieces, but it's like, I'm excited when I wake up. I can't wait to hit it again. And I'm so excited with all this. The fear is losing all this stuff I have in my head before I can get it down on paper, before I forget. It's when, it's talking about being in the moment. It's that part of the journey that is everything. And then once it's done, it's kind of like, then it's up to everybody else to either enjoy it, or maybe you don't align with it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's really, the old cliche, it's really about the process.
Yeah. I'm going to play a little bit more of the record. Let's see, let me bring it up.
This one?
Yes.
Oh,
that's the one.
I learned this from Dean Martin.
Hey, by the way, yesterday I talked to somebody who said the Bob Hope, it was Mike Campbell, Bob Hope biography he said it was a fabulous book. Really great book. So that's kind of interesting. Do you have any requests that I play a particular one, or?
I think, Justin, urgency, or?
Sure. Yeah, urgency's good.
Okay.
The urgency of every moment.
Oh my gosh. I'm just afraid of getting like taken down, so I'm stopping early. But anyway, this is just a tease for you people to buy that record. Oh, it sounds gorgeous.
Thank you, Cathy.
Yeah, we were so fortunate to have all these fantastic musicians involved in this project, because it was no easy lift. There's a lot of stuff to do in there, and they just made it all happen. So
Yeah, I mean the stellar sound of the musicians and the recording definitely, it must be thrilling to have it all come together.
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you sit in your office writing a piece for however many months, and then you finally get to hear real musicians, getting together in a room and turning it into actual music. I mean, up to that point, it's just this abstract bits and numbers and letters that exist, in space, and then suddenly it becomes this real live thing. There's nothing like that. So,
Yeah.
And all of these pieces, it would take a long time to go through every one of them, but Justin put a lot of thought into the titles for each one, that really speak to, different fragments of the experience of he and his son, and and to hear him talk about what each one of these tracks, what those titles mean, really colors what the music is about. It's so intentional.
Yeah, is this written in the liner notes, or is this something that you guys have experienced through interviews and such?
Well, eventually there are going to be videos that go along with each track, but they're not quite ready yet. And at the beginning of each track, Justin is interviewed and talks about each one of these titles.
I see.
right.
I don't remember, Justin, if the in the liner notes, I don't think a description of each title is in there.
Not of the individual movements, no.
Walking in Our Own Footsteps, the circle game, is the circle game just in reference to a concept, or is that in reference to the song, Joni Mitchell's song?
It's actually not in reference to the Joni Mitchell song as much as I'm an incredible Joni Mitchell fan. Like from the time I was like 2 years old, I'm still listening, to the same records. But no, it's about my experience with my son and the way that he learns things, which often require, many sort of almost replaying the same thing over and over again, and learning by continuous practice. So sometimes it sort of feels like we're often learning things in circles. And that particular movement essentially starts out and works its way from the beginning to a certain point, and then some stuff happens, and then when it gets to a certain point, it kind of rewinds itself and plays itself out backwards in some ways. So the movement reflects that as well musically.
Yeah. And Roland wants to know what are the invisible things?
Invisible things, that's one thing I notice about my son is that he seems to notice things that I would never notice. And so sometimes he'll be looking at something really intently, and I look over there and I just don't see anything. But for him, it might be maybe there's some light, the way light is reflecting or something. He can be really fascinated by that. Or I mentioned before, somebody asked me about it, how sometimes he'll like reach down and pick up the tiniest thing from the ground that you would never know was there, but he's just spots it and picks it up like a hair or so, just something so small. So he's if you don't know him very well, you might think that he's completely aloof and not aware of what's going on, but seems to always be aware of all the details of what's going on around him. It's just that he doesn't necessarily let you know right away. So that's what that movement speaks about.
Cool. Yeah, Three Roads Diverged is a name that keeps attracting me. What was that about?
Well, that's in reference to the Robert Frost line about two roads, diverged in a wood. In this case, it's really about when you find out, when you're told that your child is diagnosed with autism. As a parent, you find yourself in a place that you never imagined that you would be in. Or, I mean, even if you imagine that it's possible, you have no idea what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I sort of think of it as like, you imagine that you have these different roads that you can take. And then suddenly it's like, well, there's a road over here that nobody ever told you was there, but guess what? You're on it, so that's what that's about.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're on it.
What's that?
I guess what, you're on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Justin,
Yeah.
did you studied somewhere, I'm assuming, for writing?
For
Where was
composing,
that?
yeah. Well, I did my undergraduate work in composition at UCLA. And I worked with a little bit. I didn't have a chance to work with him much. A really wonderful composer there named Mark Carlson. He was sort of my first composition teacher. And I worked a little bit with Elaine Barkin there, who was also fantastic. I did my master's work at Cal State Hayward. Well, it's Cal State East Bay, and worked with a composer that I absolutely love. He's an incredible composer, especially a choral composer named Frank LaRocca, who taught me so much about composition, more than anything, just really how to have enough faith in myself as a composer to be able to, get through the process successfully. And also a lot about how to teach composition. And at University of Oregon, where I did my doctoral work, I studied with two amazing composers there, Robert Keir and David Crumb, who is the son of the famous George Crumb, but an enormously different composer, much more conservative in a lot of ways, actually. And I learned a huge amount from both of them too. So, yeah. And, that was all like sort of classical composition. I didn't really study jazz composition with anybody, just been doing it on my own.
Yeah. Huh. I must admit, when I went to college, I went to Berkeley, and I went for composition and arranging, and I just didn't go down that path. And I think about it a lot because I always wanted to get involved in that area. And I kept telling myself over the years, you should go to school or just go on, go do something. And I just didn't. But, I still tell myself that. I still tell myself, hey, yeah, maybe I can, get into that and just have some fun and like be so creative. It's just, I think it's a fascinating area. As a matter of fact, I interviewed Nan Schwartz, and she's kind of one of those cousins who's not really a cousin. She's married to somebody, who you're related to. But anyway, and the story for her that I was told originally before I met her actually was she was young, not super young. She was maybe she was in college, and she had a very bad accident where she was hospitalized for months. Healing her body. And apparently her parents were in the music industry, and some of their friends were like Mancini and people like that. So they would come to visit her, and she told them that she was thinking of getting into arranging, and they actually convinced her to get into composing because for the money, and she just went right into it, not even having any concept that women were not even in the industry at all, in that part of the industry at all. She just dove right in, and then
the interesting thing about studying composition too, I think is, and maybe you've had this experience too, and John, maybe you have too, I don't know, but I realized after I finished all my graduate work and everything that I studied composition for a long time, and I'd never actually seen somebody write a piece of music, which is such a, when you study an instrument, you sit next to somebody and they play the thing and then you play the thing, and you're sort of like, you go back and forth. But when you study composition, you don't actually watch people, you don't see them compose. You just talk about composing. or you get advice about it, but yeah, it's a funny thing to study.
That's really interesting. B flat, please. That was just a, it was a B flat moment.
Definitely.
You need to write, Cathy, do it.
Yeah.
You don't need to study, just do it.
No, get with somebody who will actually sit and compose with you.
Yeah.
I mean, so you actually are doing it together.
Yeah. I mean, I've done little bits and pieces of arranging over the years. And when I was in college, I was doing a little bit of it, like the typical trumpet and sax horn parts that people always came up with for some reason. I was flute and trombone and flugelhorn. I don't know. That was what I liked. But yeah, I started doing that. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
so August 2nd,
Yeah. You're
I
giving
want
a
you to
class.
send me your string quartet.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, 28 measures. August 2nd. I can't wait to see it. String quartet and voice. August 2nd. I'm giving you a deadline.
Okay, string quartet, August 2nd. I have to do some research.
That's less than 2 months.
String quartet,
28 bars. Come on.
You got to get some staff paper.
It's kind of like learning Spanish. I have a guy who's been working on my house for months, and I told him I wanted to learn Spanish, and I had been studying Rosetta Stone, and he's just started talking to me in Spanish,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I wrote it down, John. I'm gonna start working on that.
Honestly, I know I'm an educator and all of that stuff, but I never learned anything from, anything I've ever learned has just been by doing it.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about what not to do by observing other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes you learn what to do, and that's valuable. That's part of the education, but it's really just seeing what the options are and saying, oh, you can do that? Okay, and then do it. Just do it. That's the only way it goes in. That's it. I remember, I had this commission from Mark Carlson that, Justin mentioned with the Pacific Palisades, string quartet and flute. I didn't know what I was doing, but I listened to late string quartets of Beethoven, when I went to sleep, when I woke up in the car, I listened to them over and 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 over. And then I listened again, and I really absorbed the sound first without trying to think about it. And then I listened to them and transcribed the parts without looking at the score, because I didn't want to intellectualize it, but I wanted to see and feel how that stuff was happening. And then I looked at the scores and I corrected what I didn't hear right. And then I just wrote everything out so I could experience it, in his language, in that language. And then I threw it all out the window, and just tried to write the way that I wrote. But that was a good process, but I didn't learn anything really until what I learned was doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand.
August 2nd, I can't wait to see this piece.
I can't wait either.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Yeah, what Edward, I'm going to slaughter your name. Maybe you know this. Hit this guy, Cesare.
Oh, Cesare, yeah.
Cesare.
He's my cousin, yeah.
Oh, he said, I don't need time. What I need is a deadline. By Duke. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. And Steve Patterson said, so wish we could get a really good recording of Justin's early string quartet. Heard its premiere at UC Hayward with a student group, and it knocked me out then.
Oh, that's kind of, yeah. One day I'll revise that piece, maybe get back to it at some point. So
Yeah. Um, well, oh, it's 2 o'clock. Geez. You guys, it's been so much fun talking with you. Really, just I've loved the conversation. Thank you so much for talking.
Oh, thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Cathy. Again, thank you for the space, for holding space for us.
Sure, no
Good to
problem.
see you too.
So-
And on August 2nd, what you should do, we should do a live premiere.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think I'm going to sneak in the door well, I'm not even going to say if I have something. I'm going to
You
sneak.
heard it here, folks. It's going to be done August 2nd, and we can have a little rehearsal period. So the premiere will be September 2nd.
Call it a reading.
here.
A reading.
Yeah, a little read through.
Live reading.
Oh, wow. I'm really excited. Okay.
Mhm. Done.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you the two live guests we have on after today. Tomorrow, speaking of string players, fantastic string players, Akuya Dixon, who's a cellist, a jazz cellist in New York, and she has a history that's incredible. Absolutely. And she's not that old, but she's she's played with some amazing people. So that's tomorrow. Tom Kubis, talking about arranging, great arranger for years and years, just incredible arranger. He's a Los Angeles or Orange County guy. And so that'll be Tuesday and Wednesday at 12 to 2. So thank you guys so very much. And
Thank you.
gee, have a wonderful, wonderful day and or an evening for you.
Thank you.
You too.
You too.
Goodbye, y'all.
Okay, see you soon.
Have a great one.